Hello and welcome to PopFlash. I'm Jack Westerman, joined by the world famous Jason Moses O'Toole, and this is everything you need to know about Counter-Strike this week. Our first story this week is the ESL ESEA Dubai Invitational, which took place in the United Arab Emirates between September 10th and 12th, the weekend just gone. Now, Jason, this was a $250,000 tournament, kind of akin to a Valve-sponsored major. And as we take a look at the group stage results, there is a hell of a lot to talk about here. My first question, Jason, is what the hell happened to Cloud9? 2 or 3 months ago, they were floating on Cloud9, essentially. They were in the finals of back-to-back tournaments. They were playing so well with Skidule and Freakazoid, and all of a sudden, they hit the major, they fell down, and now, here in Dubai, they failed to get out of the groups once again. Explain, American.
I mean, it's a combination of a lot of things. One, that sequence of the semifinals they had when they were playing so well, there was not a lot of... No one really had to care about them. No one was really worried about them until they started performing, and then they went on that streak. So there wasn't a lot to look at for them having success to study. And conversely, they had all the data in the world to study against the teams that they were looking at.
Right.
It was a perfect combination of nothing playing really, really well, and his inconsistencies have been well documented. So I think he's kind of in maybe not a slump, but it's just one of those periods where he's not playing as well. And just also Shroud didn't play that great, Freakazoid didn't play that great. I think all of them coming into this event, they had very low hours played. I mean, they got back from the major, they had a little bit of a vacation. A lot of them were at PAX, fulfilling obligations to their organization, and they just weren't prepared. I mean, that's just the simple way to put it, is they were not prepared.
Okay, well, on the other side of the coin, let's also talk about Ninjas in Pajamas, because they were almost bucking the trend in the other direction. There's been no shortage of commentary about Ninjas in Pajamas' struggles recently, but as they went through this tournament, they kind of got hotter and hotter. They started off in Group A, getting absolutely blown out by Virtus.Pro, but then they came back, squeaked past Cloud9, and then blew out Envious. So slowly, getting... warmer and warmer, I guess the way to look at it would be. So all this talk of rejuvenation, is it finally paying off for NIP?
Well, I think it's just an issue, not an issue, but I think it's just the fact that they just had no pressure on them. They have no expectations at this point. They've been getting beaten up for the past few months, and they came into this and they just had a good time. And you can see, I mean, they didn't do anything tactically or as a team that really blew anyone away, but individually, I mean, Forrest and Get Right played unbelievable. Alu even had some really good matches. Exist had some really good matches. So, I mean, they just played loose, and we'll just have to see. Those guys have some decisions to make.
Okay, well, let's jump over to Group B now and have a look over there. So, as we can see, TSM actually won the group ahead of fnatic, which we'll come back to, and Titan and Na'Vi were eliminated here in the group stage. My first question is about Na'Vi, because they... kind of like Cloud9, got absolutely stomped in this tournament. They lost to TSM and Titan. I think they were both 10-16, those matches. But not many people would have expected a loss to Titan from Na'Vi, especially the newly assembled Titan roster. And, if we look at Na'Vi's statistics here, Zeus was statistically the worst player of the tournament. And as a team, they only won 36% of their counter-terrorist rounds. How do you begin to explain that, Jason?
You don't. They had a terrible tournament. They played very, very bad. And while you say, just to give myself a little bit of credit, a little bit of hype, I predicted Titan to win this best of three while at the tournament. I think it's I think it's a combination of Titan is starting to play a little bit better together. I don't think they're ever going to be world beaters or predicted to win an event, but Na'Vi, we've seen them kind of going this downward trend for a couple events now, and they haven't looked as good as they did when they were winning. They won ESWC when they won that event, and things around that time. But there's been a lot of rumors of cracks coming out in this team. They're a team that's very emotional. They get they're a tough team that struggles to make comebacks in matches, and they just haven't been playing very well. So it's really not that surprising, actually.
Okay, well, speaking of struggling, and on the same theme of underperformance, I guess, let's talk about the two French teams as well, because they're kind of in the same boat. Envious in Group A and Titan in Group B. Now, Titan failing to qualify out of a group with TSM, Fnatic, and Na'Vi is perhaps to be expected, but
Yep.
Envious not qualifying from Group A, having just been in the grand final of the Cologne Major just prior to this, that is definitely shocking, right? Do you think this is perhaps teams have had a bit more time to anti-strat them after the Major?
I wouldn't call it anti-stratting. I would say that Titan, first of all, coming out of Gamers Paradise, which you shouldn't put a lot of stock into based on all the issues that event had. But, I mean, Titan played well at that event, and then they backed it up. I mean, that was the crucial thing. If Titan hadn't been able to back it up at this event, then it just would have been thrown away. That was based on the experiences of Gamer Paradise. But they played well as they could have. They, beating Na'Vi. No, I don't think anyone expected them to come out of that group whatsoever, so no surprise there. But Envy, I think that's just a product of the fact they have so much skill, and they looked good at IEM and at the Major, as you said, but they're having success based on these 4-1 death squads, and once teams get used to that, it's an easy thing to counter for experienced teams. So I think it's just a situation where they're going to have to start changing things. They even did that less this event than they did at the Major, so you can see they're kind of having some growing pains where they're like, all right, we can't just rely on that forever. We have to start building a foundation as a team to build on. So that's kind of the nature of why they struggled a lot at this event, in my opinion.
All right, so moving on to the bracket stage in Dubai now. Let's get this up on screen and have a look. So in the lower half of this bracket, we'll see Ninjas in Pajamas losing to Team Solo Mid. Perhaps not too much of a story there. That is potentially just the restoration of order down there at the bottom right. But at the top, Virtus.Pro knocking Fnatic out in the semi-final. That, to me, is the thing to talk about here.
Yeah.
It's not too bad losing in the semi-finals. It's a respectable place for any team, but we've come to expect more from Fnatic. It feels like a little bit of a shock, this. Is that fair? Was this just Virtus.Pro on form?
I mean, it's a testament to how good Fnatic is that we, are disappointed in them for not being in the finals whatsoever. So all the credit to them for even getting their reputation to that point. But I don't, as interesting as it seemed, as much as I always consider Fnatic favorites in most tournaments, I thought Virtus.Pro would win this as well. Virtus.Pro's played the best Counter-Strike since, I would say, the SIBO finals a couple months back. And, even at Cologne in the semifinals there, they should have beat Fnatic in that best of three, and they didn't. Just a miraculous comeback coming out of pauses for Fnatic. So it doesn't surprise me that Virtus.Pro won. It surprised me at how big the wins were. That cash match was wide. The second two maps that Virtus.Pro won, they were wide affairs. Like, they weren't even close. And that was kind of what was more surprising than anything. But Virtus.Pro has been playing so incredibly well, and you can't take that away from them. They definitely deserve that win.
Absolutely. 16-4 and 16-3, I think those two maps were, right?
It was unreal.
And after that, of course, they went to the grand final where they would meet Team Solo Mid, and that was a hell of a match, right? Best of 5. We saw all 5 maps, and in the final map, it came down to pretty much the last 3 rounds, right? TSM had that completely sick 2 versus 5 on the 27th round, and VP still came back to win. I mean, what kind of mental strength does it take to get over losing a round like that so close to the end of a match?
A lot. I mean, it takes a lot. And it's the funny thing. I think Anders, after the match, was saying, he came up to me and he was like, man, if my team had lost that round in a 5-on-2, he's like, I probably would have just gotten up and walked away. And, you kind of got to agree with him. And I almost feel like Taz, as the endgame leader, after losing that round, had to have been, so upset that he didn't even call a strategy. That's the funny thing to me is they were all probably so frustrated that they were just like, oh my god, I can't believe we lost that. And then the next round they just come back and obliterate them. I mean, they just got aggressive and they found gaps in the defense. It was kind of like one of those YOLO things, but it's incredibly impressive for a team to do that at that stage in the match at 13-13 when they've lost. I think TSM had won 10 rounds straight or something like that. I think the first half was 12-3. To even be at that point, I mean, that takes some guts, and it's just Virtus.Pro. They're a hard team to stop no matter what you do.
Our second story this week is DreamHack Open, the qualifier for the next major, which is due to take place in Stockholm from September 22nd to 26th. The story, of course, being that DreamHack have announced the groups for the tournament. So, Jason, let's get these up on screen and have a quick look. as we can see, 4 groups here: Cloud9, Immunity, Dignitas, Hellraisers, Titan, all these familiar names that we'll see on this on the screen here. For you, looking at this and bearing in mind that 8 teams will qualify for the major from this pool, so 2 from each group, what are your initial thoughts looking at this?
My initial thoughts are that if Cloud9 and CLG don't make the major, I'm gonna freak out. Like, freak out. Liquid should be able to make the major. I mean, that's kind of the tough group, is this Group C with Liquid and Mouse Sports and Renegades. Those are, top 3 that are all pretty close to each other, especially since Liquid's untested. So I think Cloud9 should have a relatively easy time. I think them and Dignitas should make it out of there. CLG should make it out with Flipside. Actually, that new CSGO launch team could make a small upset, but Liquid, I think if they continue to improve, by the time this rolls around, they should be able to beat Renegades or Mouse Sports. Those will be close games. I mean, it's not going to be easy for Liquid to get out. Mythic, they're going to have. I mean, they have an outside chance. I don't think they'll make it, but they could. And then in Group B, it would be Hellraisers and Titan, I think, that are gonna push it out. So, this is a situation where we could have 3 to 4 North American teams at the major, which would just be insane. Now, going against them is the format, the double elimination best of 3. I mean, That's a really good format to have to get the best teams in there, but that's also where North American teams struggle, even against, the tier 2 and 3 European teams, is when you're playing a best of 3. They're really good for best of 1 upsets here and there, but are these teams going to be able to win a best of 3? And that's why I think C9 and CLG, with the most experience of North American teams, should be the ones to definitely move on.
Last but not least, this week on PopFlash, I've got some quick-fire questions for you, Jason. So, quick as you can, give me your thoughts on the following stories from the week. First of all, Team Liquid won the iBuyPower Fall Invitational, defeating Luminosity Gaming in the final.
Very, very cool. I'm not going to put too much stock in it. Liquid looks impressive ever since Hiko joined, which is ironic because he's washed up, or he's overrated, whatever you might want to call him. But either way, I think this, more than anything of Liquid being dominant, I think it just kind of signifies how close the North American scene is going to be this upcoming season of Pro League and other leagues here in North America. So that's just cool to see teams improving.
And lastly, Dosia has announced that he's departed from Hellraisers and Simple has stepped in.
Not surprising. I think Simple's too talented, and with his ban coming up in January, I think he's going to start experimenting on where he wants to go. And he's actually, his ban's through ESL, so he can attend this major at DreamHack. So that's another big thing. And also, we've just been hearing rumors, even with Navi involved, of all these shakeups in the CIS scene. So I think it's just kind of one step, towards that all occurring, and we'll just have to see where the cards lie.
That's it for this week. I'm Jack Westerman, joined by Jason Moses O'Toole.
And we'll be back next Wednesday with another episode of PopFlash.